Before this video begins, I would like to take a quick moment to thank Bain Books for helping set up the interview that is in this video, and I would also like to apologize for the audio quality. When I was working in editing this video, I ran into some problems and I was not able to get the best audio quality. So you can still hear the interview, but it's just, you might have to turn up your volume a lot. I apologize for that. This was in no way the fault of the author or the publisher that helped set this up. This was my problem in editing, but I still hope that you enjoy the video. Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have the wonderful privilege of being here with Kacey Ezell. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
So the first question I have is, how did you get connected, not just with writing and publishing, but specifically with Bain Books?
Oh, wow. Okay, so there's a whole story.
Yeah.
So, fun fact, I don't always look this colorful. We are doing this interview at DragonCon, which is, multimedia, pop culture, sci-fi, fantasy, anything that you could imagine. There's a track for it here at DragonCon, and I've been coming to DragonCon for a number of years. And way back when, in like 2004, I came to DragonCon, and I was, very small and very cute and dressed in a very short skirt, and happened to make the acquaintance of a gentleman by the name of John Ringo, who is a great guy, good friend of mine, but that's where we met. And John initially was interested in talking to me because of, said cuteness and said short skirt. But when we really bonded when he found out that at the time I was active duty military and I'm a helicopter pilot, and he was interested in that for his writing and stuff. So we started talking, and that's how we became friends. Well, fast forward to 2010, I was actually deployed to Iraq, and when you're deployed, you kind of like hoard things to do, right? So one day I got an email from John, and because he knew that I knew that I have an academic background in writing and stuff like that, and so he knew that I was interested, and he said, "Hey, I am editing an anthology of military science fiction by military veterans, and I need a new voice. Do you have anything?" And I said, "Well, no, but I could." And 24 hours later, I sent him the first draft of what became Light in the Citizens Anthology that was published by Bain in 2010. Yeah. We're not that far ahead, are we? Sorry. It's day 3 of DragonCon, you guys.
We're all tired.
So in 2010, Citizens came out, edited by John Ringo and Brian Thompson, I believe. And that was my first pro sale was that story, Light. So, and also it's not under my current name because that was before I got married.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see that when I was looking up by you.
But that was my introduction to Bain, and how I kind of like got into the circles it was all because of DragonCon.
So the next question actually has to do with that, which is the idea of collab. You've collabed with John Ringo. You've collabed with people like Marissa Wolf. You've collabed with a lot of different authors.
Yes.
How does that work compared to if you were writing a project solo? Do you find that you need to adjust a lot of your things? Do you find that you need to have more patience because you may disagree? What is the process for you?
So that's a really interesting question. I'm kind of an extreme extrovert. I love people, and I love collecting people, collecting friends.
That is not an author trait. That is not an author trait. That answer is back to 0, except for you.
No. Well, you probably didn't ask Marisa because she's exactly the same way.
Okay.
But that's why we're such good friends. Honestly, is we have a very similar brain. But yeah, so I really like people. So when we get together and we riff stories off of each other and ideas and stuff, it's like, hey, we should do this because we both get excited about the project, But what I have noticed, because I have done so many collaborations, is that not only is every collaborative relationship different, because like I've done 3 books in an anthology with Marisa now, and several short stories, and our relationship is unique, as compared to like my relationship with John Ringo and Chris Smith, or my relationship with Tom Kratman and Justin Watson.
Right.
But every project has its own sort of like dynamic or flow too. So even with the same partner, which is kind of interesting. But what there are a couple of tricks of the trade, I would say, if you are working with someone and you're not used to working with someone. I'm a pretty hardcore plotter. when I write my stories, and I find that to be a useful tool for collaborations too, because when you write it down, you don't both have to remember it, and you can be on the same page. But many of my co-authors are actually pantsers, so.
Right.
So what we end up doing is sort of a hybrid of that, where in the macro we'll plot it out, so we both know where we're going, what we're doing. But if there are certain scenes that they need to write, I have to let go of a little bit of control and be like, okay, I can't plot this down to the level of detail that I prefer for myself.
Right.
Please to make happen. And they do. Yeah, they do. It's really great.
I know when I was talking with Les Johnson, he talked about how he was a plotter, but Ben Bova was a pantser.
Uh-huh.
So when they co-wrote a novel together, Ben Bova was just, we'll figure it out.
That's very stressful for plotters.
Yes, we feel anxiety. I'm a plotter as well when I write.
Yeah.
I feel anxiety at the idea of we'll just figure it'll come to us.
Yeah.
I'm like,
So I'm willing to trust that it will come to so Marissa's a little bit more, she's not a full, she's sort of, I'd call her a plantser.
Plantser.
Yeah, where she does both, kind of a hybrid of both, but we, she's far more pantsy than I am. It is DragonCon, guys. And she, so a lot of times, I'm willing to trust her because I know her and respect her work and stuff, that yeah, at some point she will figure it out. But for me, I have to sit down and figure it out kind of before, even if it's like kind of chapter by chapter or scene by scene, I have to figure out what's happening in that scene before I sit down to write it. Otherwise, I'll get halfway through and be like, well, crap, what was I doing? Like, where am I going with this? What happens next? And that's how I end up getting stuck. So that was really why I developed the plotting techniques that I personally use, is because I hate that feeling of being stuck. It sucks.
So I want to talk about a specific one of your collabs
Okay.
that I know about, which is the Battle Luna series, or book rather. I know that started at LibertyCon when they were having a conversation about, I believe was it Travis Taylor?
Yeah.
They were having a conversation about this book idea, and they decided to write the book, but basically in part form where each author took a part of it. So I think there were four or five authors that worked on it, including another one that I talked with, Timothy Zahn. He also contributed to that. So what was your role among that group, and what kind of communication and what did that collab process look like compared to the others?
Oh, okay, really good question. So, so fun fact, Josh Hayes and I, who both worked on that project, we came late to the project. So the original panel, I think it included John Ringo actually, and they had this whole sort of thing plotted out. But by the time they got around to, because they're all very busy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Travis Taylor he's got his TV show, he's writing books. John's super busy. Tim Zahn is saving Star Wars single-handedly. Sorry, I didn't say that. You guys didn't hear that. But
I don't think my audience will have a problem.
but he's a great guy. I love Tim. He's super nice. But anyway, so the bottom line is they were busy, so it took a while to get back around to the project. And when they did, John couldn't participate because he was committed elsewhere, and just had too much on his plate. And I think someone else. There was one other person, I can't remember who it was, who was like, no, I'm sorry, I can't do this. So Tony Weisskopf reached out to me and said, hey, I've got an opportunity for someone to jump in, and I think that you can do it because I know you know these guys and you like them and can work with them. And so I was like, hey, yeah, that sounds great. Can I bring a friend? And I called Josh. And so Josh and I, because Josh Hayes he's primarily an indie sci-fi author.
Right.
But he and I'd worked together on some stuff, and I knew that this project was right up his alley. So how it worked is we got an email with the outline and sort of a summary of the panel discussion that sparked the whole idea, and sort of what other people were kind of doing for this overall sort of braided novel, I guess is what I'd call it. And so I just sort of took a section. I said, okay, I will handle what happens during this timeline in this area over here, and I wrote it kind of myself without much input during the actual drafting process, and then I sent it in for editing, and that's where the basically editorial input came from Travis, who was kind of honchoing the whole thing.
So on like a full novel that you've done, or an anthology, whether it be with Marissa or John or other people, do you write there's two formats I've heard of. There's some people where they each take a portion, like these are the chapters we'll write, and then they swap. Or the others, which is the Brandon Sanderson method with his collabs, where one person will write a whole draft, the other person will look at that and then write their own draft, and then they go back and forth writing drafts. Which one do you use?
So I haven't done the full draft versus full draft thing. I've done the you write this part, I'll write that part, and I've also done the where we sit down and kind of figure it out together and then write it. But like I said, every process for every project is slightly different. And so I would say primarily a lot of times I'll break up my collaborations by point of view. So they'll end up being multi-POV characters, and I'll take one particular character's point of view, and then someone else will take another character's point of view. And then that is, in my opinion, an easy way to do a collab because you don't have to worry about the voices sounding different. Because they should, right? Because they're different characters. Yeah, so.
Getting into the genre with Battle Luna, that's getting into that sci-fi, and with that genre, you have authors who will get really deep into the minutia of the technology and the engineering, and trying to make it as hard and real as possible.
Yeah.
And then you have others who will just their ships are going. I care about the characters. Where do you fall on that spectrum? And how much time do you have to spend researching versus how much time do you just let someone else handle things?
I would say I'm probably 3/4 of the way along the spectrum towards more character driven, because that's what's interesting to me is the dynamics and relationships and interactions between characters. But I also want to get the science to feel correct, because otherwise it throws the reader out of the story and they don't give a crap what your characters are doing, right? So for example, in my portion of Battle Luna, my main character is actually a moondog handler, and a moondog is this. It's basically, if you can imagine, a military working dog that has been bred and trained to work in the microgravity environment of, well, not microgravity, but lesser gravity environment of a domed moon base, if you can imagine that. And the reason I wanted to do that is well, there's a couple of reasons. One, military working dogs were in the news at the time because a big capture had happened in Afghanistan, and a military working dog team was at the center of that, and so I thought that was interesting. And I wanted to, projectile weapons, guns basically, are problematic in a domed moon environment. So it made sense to me that a law enforcement function would have to have some other way of essentially having ranged weaponry that wasn't necessarily going to compromise the integrity of that dome. And if you've ever heard the term fur missile, that's how people describe, canine law enforcement officers and military working dogs when they're on target going to do the thing. It's fur missile, and I was like, okay, let's see how let's play with this idea and see where this goes. So I had to do actually a lot of research about. So what do military working dogs do? What is their training like? And I was really fortunate because at the time I was stationed at Yokota Air Base overseas in Japan, which was great, by the way. And my daughter's best friend, her dad was in charge of the military working dog section. And so I called in a favor to see if I could go have lunch with some of the guys and kind of pick their brains and meet. I actually got to meet the dogs. It was very cool. So,
nice.
Yeah.
So you have a new anthology coming out.
Yes.
With Larry Correa. That is a noir anthology from down these mean streets. Can you tell us a little about what this anthology is and approximately, and we don't have the exact date, approximately when to expect it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm told it's coming out January of 2024, which is sneaking up on us. It's like around the corner.
That's not that far.
So I'm very excited about it, and because it's a really, really good anthology. I think you guys are really going to like it. So this is actually the third in sort of an accidental series of anthologies, because Larry and I, we did the first anthology, Noir Fatale, and it was a really fun process, and we got some really great stories, and y'all loved it, and thank you for loving it and buying it, because it did well enough to allow us to do 2 more. So the first one was Noir Fatale, and it focused on the concept of the anthology is it's a collection of science fiction and fantasy short stories that focus on the character archetype of the noir femme fatale, right? So like Ingrid Bergman's character in Casablanca would be an example, right? And so, and they were beautiful. We got some great stories. And then so we decided, well, you know, we wanted to give equal time to the guys in the equation. So our second one, No Game for Knights, came out last September and just recently actually in mass market. So that's available now. And that one focuses on the archetype of the noir detective, right? What I call the Gray Knight, the guy who's a little bit anti-hero-ish, but you know his heart's in the right place, but he doesn't mind breaking a few noses on the way to the answers of the truth, you know. So that's just a concept I've always loved. But then the third one, we noticed that a lot of very classic noir stories, Casablanca being an example, Mulholland Falls and LA Confidential being other ones, those you can't imagine them happening anywhere other than where they're set, because the story is such an integral part of, or the setting is such an integral part of the story. I wouldn't say necessarily more so than other genres, but you can definitely feel it in when you're talking about noir stories. Like it has to be in that place, and it's usually a city. So that's what we did for the third one. The focus is on the city, and it's called Down These Mean Streets, which is from a quote by Raymond Chandler, who's my favorite noir author of all time. You guys should go check him out. He's really good.
Do you have a social media presence, and if so, where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of my links are the easiest place to find all of my links is my website, which is kaceyezell.net or .com. I own both. And but I'm also on Instagram as at Kacey Ezell. I'm on Facebook as Kacey Ezell, I believe. Just Kacey Ezell. I'm on Twitter as Kacey Ezell 1 because I used to have a Kacey Ezell 1 and then I shut it down and then I was like, oh no, I need this now. So, and I actually have a YouTube channel as well, but it's kind of on hiatus right now because I'm in the middle of a move. So I'm just doing shorts right now. But my YouTube channel is Kacey Ezell Writer Life, and you can find me at any of those places. So
Get that down.
Yeah.
So that I can look that up later.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for doing this interview.
Thank you
with
for
me.
having me. Thank you guys. So.
All right. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you.